Hey guys, this is Miss Smith. We're going to be learning about areas of polygons and circles. Okay, the first thing we're going to be learning about is rectangles and parallelograms. These are almost the same. We have talked about the differences between rectangles and parallelograms, but parallelograms are kind of just a slanted rectangle. Triangles, three-sided figure. Trapezoids, there are two types of trapezoids, and we're going to go over that later. Now, circles are a totally different story, okay? As we talked about earlier, and everyone should know this by now, these are our polygons. Okay, polygons are straight, they're straight figures that have straight lines with no openings, and a circle is one of its own kind. Okay, so it is not a polygon. These are all polygons. Okay, next, I want everybody to make sure they have their formula chart before we start, because you're gonna be writing on it when we start going through this. Okay, so we always need to use and understand our formula charts. Okay, our formula charts are kind of like a cheat sheet. Okay, you are allowed to use them on the STAR test and anything in my class. You're always allowed to use them. So as we go through, make sure you always have it. Okay, so fill in your formula chart as we go. Hint. Okay, when we are finding area, which mean 2D figures, the first thing we need to know is area always means units squared. Okay, so that it means at the end we're going to put a little squared here. Okay, if we're talking about perimeter, which we're not going to in this video, that just means that you see units like this. Okay, now volume we're not going to talk about in this video, but I want you to know that when we start talking about volume, that's going to be units to the third power. So these are kind of indicators of how we know what area is. Perimeter doesn't have anything after, and then volume is always going to be cubed or to the third power. Okay, at the beginning, with area, the only thing we're talking about in this video, the hint is you always need to find the right angle. Okay, right angle means it makes a 90-degree angle. Okay, to determine where the base or our variable b and the h, which means our height, are located. Base and height always create the vertex. Okay, a vertex is when two lines come together. So the base and the height always create the vertex of the right angle on all polygons. Okay, all polygons. Okay, let's look at our formula chart. Here is what we're, all the way around. Sorry, my pen kind of messed up. All the way around the area. This is all what we're working with. Perimeter, all we need to know is it's side, dot, 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 however many sides you have, because sometimes they're irregular figures. So I don't really like to use rectangle or this. So perimeter means S plus S plus S, side plus side, however many sides you have. Okay, circle, which means circumference, is the perimeter of a circle. Now, like I said, we're not going to be talking about this at all during this video, but we need to know what circumference is here. Okay, and we'll talk about that another time in class. So all we're focusing on is all of this in our formula chart, so you need to make sure you have that next to you. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is rectangles. Now, we've already gone over what rectangles and the characteristics or attributes are, but we're going to go over it again. Okay, rectangles are opposite sides. Opposite sides are parallel, okay, and all angles are 90 degrees. All angles make a 90-degree angle. Okay, so I put 2 here. There's not any units on it, but let's make this a 6 by 4. Let's make it centimeters. 6 by 4 centimeter, and let's make this a 2 by 10 centimeter. Okay. Now, rectangles and squares have the same formula. Okay, you just find the right angle. And your right angles make up your base and your height. Now, we also can call this area equals length times width. It means the same exact thing. Okay, but on your formula chart it says area equals base times height, because a variable next to a variable means that we're multiplying. Okay, now, all we're doing, guys, is if you have your formula chart and you know what shape this is, you're plugging in, okay, because these are variables and it gives you what these letters mean. So in the first shape, area would equal base times height, which means what makes the right angle. 6 times 4. So 6 plugged in for B, 4 plugged in for H. So area equals 6 times 4 equals 24 centimeters. What I tell you earlier, it's squared. Okay, so my answer is 24 centimeters squared, or 24 square centimeters. Okay, This one, what do you think it is? Let's just go ahead and do it. Very good. 20 centimeters squared. That's my area of this. Rectangle is very easy. I just wanted to go over it really fast. Okay, next one. Parallelograms. This is kind of like a slanted rectangle. Okay, so parallelograms can be a little tricky. It looks easy, but it can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so parallelograms, the opposite sides are parallel, just like rectangles. The opposite sides are parallel, but they're not. And congruent. Sorry, hold on. Opposite sides are parallel and congruent. Okay, so opposite sides, this side's equal because of the tick marks to this side. This side's equal to this side. Okay, and opposite angles are congruent. Unlike rectangles, all of them are 90 on rectangles, but in this case, opposite angles are equal. So if this is, 45 degrees, this has to be 45 degrees. Okay. So just a little refresher on how we know the angles of a parallelogram. Okay, so here we go. Starting out, let's make this. I want you to put 12 inches here. Okay, let's make that side 12. Let's make this side 10 inches. Okay, and let's make the bottom, or let's make our height. Okay, I didn't give you a height because it's got to be a right angle. Okay, because let's look at this. Are these right angles? No, they're not. So they're always going to give you a right angle. I just made the right angle right there. And I'm going to make the height, I'm going to make this 9 inches. Okay? This is very, very tricky because a lot of times on figures you're going to have extra information. Okay? They're going to try to confuse you with, all these numbers to try to confuse you. Okay? Well, these are the angles. Let's go ahead and mark those out. Okay. So in this case, we have to find our right angle. That's our first step. Okay? Here's our right angle. And here's our height. So we know that area equals base times height again, so our height is going to be 9, okay? So what's our base? Okay, 10 is extra information, all right? Because what makes this right angle? Well, if this side is 12, this side has to be 12. So we know that this is our base, which is connected to the height, so this would be 9 times 12, okay? Because this would be my height. Kind of did it backwards from the formula, but that's okay. This would be my height, and this would be my base. Okay, these are very tricky. All right, so area would equal 9 times 12, for time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and do it for you, is 108. Okay, and it doesn't have any units, so units squared. Just shortcut for units. Okay, so that's my area for this parallelogram. Okay, now this one's a little bit clearer. First, you find the right angle. That is the key to all area. Okay, I found my right angle here. Okay, what is extra information in this parallelogram? Very good, this 4. We do not need this 4. Okay, there's a 4 over here. We would not need this 4. Okay, so we need what makes the vertex of the right angle, which would be a 3 and a 10. So area equals base times height, which would be 10 times 3. Okay, so area equals 30 centimeters squared. Okay, easy. Okay, as long as you find that right angle, it's going to be really easy. All right, next, triangles. Okay, hint, triangles and parallelograms are where we need this, well, and trapezoids is where we need it the most. With squares and rectangles, we really know where that right angle is, so those are the easiest. But triangles, trapezoids, and parallelograms are the hardest, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write this again. Remember, the right angle creates base, which is our B, and height. Okay? The right angle creates our base and our height. So on every single shape, you got to find that right angle first. Okay, formula. Area equals 1/2 base times height. That looks confusing. Okay? But all this means is we are halving the base times the height. Okay? So another way we can write this formula is B times H divided by 2. Or some kids like to do it like this every single time because it makes more sense to them. Oops, base times height, and then divide by 2. Okay, because order of operations always tell us we got to multiply before we divide. Okay, because it's the order it goes in. All right. So there's 3 ways you can write this. Okay, now let's start out first. I'm going to go ahead and give you the units on this. I'm going to say this is 5 units, so it's an isosceles. And the bottom, I'm going to say is 11, and then my height is going to be 3. Okay, what's my extra information here? Okay, very good. My extra information is going to be these 5s. They do not make up, I use them for perimeter, but not for area, because area, I got to find the right angle. What makes the vertex? Well, the 3 and the 11. So area equals 3 times 11 divided by 2. Okay, 3 times 11 is 33. Okay, 33 divided by 2 would equal 16 and a half, or 16 and 5/10 units squared. Okay, so the triangles, most of the time we forget that triangle we have to divide by 2 in the end. So 3 times 11 divided by 2, which would give you 16 and 5/10. Now this one's a little bit easier because it doesn't have in the middle. So here's my right angle. I'm going to say the height is 13, my base is 15, and then my hypotenuse is 20. Okay, what information do I not need? I do not need this 20, okay, because I want to find the vertex of the right angle. So this problem would be area equals base times height divided by 2. So area equals 13 times 15 divided by 2. Okay, sorry, I'm running out of room here. Okay, so over here, 13 times 15, for video time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and multiply it. It's going to be 195. Okay, so 195 divided by 2 is going to give me our area. Okay, so that would equal 97 and 5/10, or 97 and a half units squared. Okay? All right, I hope everyone's with me. Let's move on. Okay, trapezoids. This is one of, triangles and trapezoids, you know, are a little confusing, and sometimes we miss these when we don't really, you know, gonna get a little confused. Okay, so trapezoids, the one characteristic or attribute you need to know is that one pair of parallel sides. Okay, my parallel sides are labeled B1 and B2. Now I know that we've never really seen something that looks like this in our formula. Okay, so this is when you look at it and go, whoa, that looks really confusing. But if you go step by step, it's really, really easy. Okay, there are 2 bases for trapezoids, okay? And everything else we've only had, you know, one base that we had to pick from, but now we have 2. So that's why we have 2 bases. One's labeled base 1 and one's labeled base 2. Either way, it doesn't matter if you put, you know, these can flip-flop, okay? So there are 2 bases for trapezoids, and these 2 bases are connected by the height, okay, which we're looking for in our formula. So let's do this one first because I think it's a little bit easier to see, okay? This is called an isosceles trapezoid because these 2 are the exact same size, okay? Which, you know what an isosceles triangle means, 2 sides are the same. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to make this side 5, which means this side has to be 5 since it is an isosceles. Okay, and then I'm going to have this base equal 7 and then this base equal 10. Ooh, goodness. Okay, now, on this one, oh, and I forgot the height. Clearly we need that. The height is going to equal 4. Okay? Extra information. The first thing I need to do is find my right angle. Okay? My right angle is connected by my 2 bases here, and my vertex are connected right there. Okay? Now, what is the extra information I do not need for area, which would only be used for perimeter? Exactly. My 5s. Okay? So go ahead and mark those out. Now, formula. Again, you can write this formula like this if it makes more sense because this means you're just dividing by 2 in the end. Okay, so don't let that confuse you. So you're really doing base 1 plus base 2. Okay, and it's in parentheses first. That means we add first. Times our height. Then in the end, you divide everything by 2. That's what that 1/2 means. Now, on your formula chart and your star test, you're not gonna see it like that. So my advice to you is write it right now on your formula chart like this if it makes more sense to you, and then right when you get your formula chart on the star test, you need to write these formulas the way that you learn easier with, okay? So let's go ahead and plug in our bases. Our bases are our parallel sides, okay? These 2 are parallel. That means they'll never hit each other, okay? So I'm going to plug in base 1. It doesn't matter if I put 7 or 10 in this. It really doesn't. So this is going to be my base 1 and my base 2. I could put 10 here for base 1 and 7 here for base 2. It does not matter. Okay? Now we found our height because it made the vertex of the right angle here and here. Okay, so times 4. Divide everything by 2. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and break it down. So order of operations tell me I have to do parentheses first. So 7 plus 10 is 70, okay, times 4. Then in the end, you divide everything by 2. So 70 times 4 would be 280. So 280 divided by 2 would give me 140 units squared. Okay, so area equals 140 units squared. All right, pretty easy, huh? Okay, let's go to this one, which has a little bit bigger numbers, but that's okay. Okay, let's find our right angles. Right angle, which are connected by my base 1 and my base 2, or base 1 and base 2, it does not matter. Extra information. I do not need this 13 unless I'm doing perimeter, of course, but this whole thing's about area. So I do not need the 12 if I'm doing area here, okay? So now, oh wait, I do need the 12. Oh my goodness, I just messed up. Okay? Your base is, this one is different from this because your area, your height is in the middle. Oh my goodness, I almost made a mistake. Okay? This is my height, which is a part of, my perimeter if I need it. So 13 is the only thing I don't need. Sorry. Okay. Base 1, 9. Base 2, 14, or vice versa. You can switch them. It doesn't matter. Okay? Times my height, which is, I almost messed up on, which is 12. Okay? Divide everything by 2. Okay? Now we got it laid out for us. Do the top, and then divide everything by 2 in the end. Okay? 9 plus 14 would be 23. So 23 times 12. Divide everything by 2 in the end. So for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and do it for you. 23 times 12 is 276. Okay? 276 divided by 2 would equal 138. Since our units are centimeters, we're going to go centimeters squared. Okay? 138 centimeters squared. Pretty easy if you know where that base and height is, which is connected by the right angle. Okay? There, on most shapes, there's extra information that you don't need unless you're doing the perimeter, which we're going to go over probably a couple times in class. Okay, next one. Okay, bear with me. This is our last one. Okay, circles are not polygons. Okay, everything else we just did were. Okay, circles are curved. Circles are kind of its own kind. Okay, they're a curved line so that the ends meet, and every point of the line is the same distance from the center of our circle. Okay, from the center of our circle. Let's do a little bit of definitions. You've done all this last year, so everything on this video should be a review. So I'm sorry if I'm going a little slow, but we need to go over these definitions first. Okay, diameter means that it's the line that goes through the center of the circle. Okay? In this case, everyone see the D down here? The D, this is my diameter. It goes through the middle of the circle. Here's my center. It goes through the whole thing from edge, or not edge, but from side to side. Okay? Radius is half of the diameter. Okay? So radius is half the diameter. Here's my radius. Okay? And it's half of the diameter. Okay? Alright, another thing we need to know is pi. Pi represents the number 3 and 1400ths, or 3.14, and it's symbolized as this. And you've learned this last year, so we should know this. Okay. Now, radius squared means r times itself, r times r. This is the same thing as 5 squared equals 5 times itself, so 5 times 5. Okay? So that means the same thing. When you see r squared, that means r times r. So every time we see area of a circle and we see pi times r, or pi r squared, we always want to rewrite it. So we're going to rewrite the formula as pi times r to help us plug it in a little bit better, because sometimes kids forget that this means radius times radius. Okay? Alright, let's go to the next one. Alright, let's do each of these, and then we'll be totally done. Okay, area. First thing I want to do is rewrite it, because it just makes a lot more sense, and you can plug it in easier if you rewrite it like pi times r. Okay? Now, one thing that you're going to love me for is Miss Grenade and I and Miss H, those of you who are watching this for on level, we always say that we're going to estimate 3 instead of 3.14 because it's just easier. So every time you see pi, let's just plug in 3 and then estimate in the end which one's the closest answer. We've done this for a while, and it's just easier on kids. Okay, now my diameter equals 8, But I don't need my diameter for this problem. What am I needing to plug in right here? Right, I need the radius. So if I know the definition of radius, radius means that it's half of the diameter. So if diameter equals 8, what does radius equal? Okay, you just divide by 2. So radius equals 4. Okay, so now area equals 3 multiplied times 4 multiplied times 4. Okay, it doesn't matter what order you go in. You could do 4 times 4 times 3 or 3 times 4 times 4. It does not matter once you get to this point. Okay, so my pi changed to 3 because we said we were going to estimate instead of 3.14. Radius was 4, so I put in radius twice. So 3 times 4 times 4. Okay, so 3 times 4 is 12. So 12 times 4, my area would equal, area equals 48. Okay, 48. There was no units on here, so 48 units squared. Okay, very good. All right, next one. I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Sometimes, let's say my diameter equaled, it gives me the radius here, but what if my diameter equaled, let's say 15. Okay, now we have a problem. Miss Smith, it doesn't go out evenly. Sometimes it doesn't. So if my diameter is 15, what is my radius going to be? Well, you got to divide 15 times 2. Or 15 times 2. 15 divided by 2. So, So radius would equal, 15 divided by 2 would equal 7.5. Okay, so my radius is a decimal this time, which stinks, but you know sometimes it doesn't come out evenly. Okay. All right, so area equals, we rewrite it, pi times r times r. Okay, area equals, we replace pi with 3 times 7.5, or 7 5/10, times 7 5/10. Okay, now I have a calculator in front of me. For time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and multiply this out. But of course, you might come across this, so we need to make sure we know how to multiply times decimals. So ending up, I'm going to do 3 times 7.5 times 7.5 in my calculator, and I ended up with 168 and 75 hundredths centimeters squared. Whoops, I'm just saying this centimeters. Okay, so area equals this. All right, let's practice on another one. What if we see something that looks like this, and I want to find the area of the shaded part, okay? These can be a little tricky, but I think I think it's really easy in the end. Okay, so area times R, okay? I'm going to say that I'm going to say the diameter equals 12. So my radius would equal what, guys? This is the first step we do. Always put R equals at the first so you don't get confused and you don't multiply times the diameter because that's not what we need. So the radius would be 6. Very good. So then we have 3 times 6 times 6. Okay? Here we go. Area equals 3 times 6 equals 18. 18 times 6 in the end would equal 108. Okay? Now, a lot of kids want to stop here and they say, I found the area. Well, what did I ask you to find? I asked you to find the area of the shaded part. So if I wanted to find the area of the shaded part, well, if I know this is what fraction is this shaded part? Very good. It's 1/4 of this whole thing. So what do you think I do in the end? Okay, area, I know you got this. Area, which is 108, divided by 4. Then I find the area of just the shaded part, which would be 27. Okay, 27, I didn't give you any units, so it's going to be units squared. Okay? All right, next one. This one is what? Cut in half. Very good. So we're going to go ahead and find the area of the whole thing, and then in the end, what do you think we do? Just like over here. Okay, divide by 2. We're dividing in the end. So area equals pi times r times r. Okay, so this would be 3 times, what did Miss Smith forget to do? At the very beginning, we need to know what r equals. If diameter is 8, r would equal 4. Very good. Okay, so it kind of looks like the first one we did, or it's exactly like the first one besides one thing. Okay, so we do 3 times 4 times 4, like up there, area would equal 48. Okay, now, what's our problem though? It doesn't show the bottom half of it, so in the end, we got to divide by 2. Okay, so if you see a half circle, we're dividing by 2. So area would equal 24 centimeters squared. Okay, 24 centimeters squared. Okay, I hope you wrote all this down because for my on-level and my pre-AP, this is going to be your notes, and you're going to have to look back at this each day we do this. Now, pre-AP, I know this is, you're watching this, and then you need to know it by the next day. But on-level, you need to keep these notes because we're going to spend one day on trapezoids, one day on triangles, one day on triangles, and everything we're going to spend one day on. So you need to make sure you copied everything down and keep your notes. Okay, only pre-AP you can stop me. Only for on-level. You need to scroll down, answer the questions, and press submit. If you do not, okay, you know what happens if you don't. Or, you're going to have a D-Hall, and, you don't want to be in that group with me, with Miss H and Miss Smith. Okay, so make sure you submit. It is your responsibility. All right, y'all have a great night.